I get this question quite often, especially with back exercises. A lot of people are worried that they're not stimulating or fatiguing the posterior muscles such as the latissimus, rear delts, rhomboids, trapezius, etc. with their pulling movements. And they're worried about this because they're feeling their forearms and their biceps burn out first. There's a reason for this. The reason is, it's very simple. There are more sensory nerves in your forearms, in your biceps, shoulders, and especially in your quadriceps, mostly due to the femoral nerve that runs beneath the quadricep muscles, which results in a lot more sensory nerves in those areas. That's why they burn much more. On the pulling movements, your forearms and your biceps may burn like crazy, especially in the beginning, and it's mostly due to just more sensory nerves in those areas. If you fail on a pulling movement, you have effectively fatigued and stimulated the trapezius, the rhomboids, and the lats. Just because you feel a particular muscle group more does not mean it's even being effectively stimulated. Obviously, in this case, your forearms or biceps are heavily worked in these movements. But in a lot of the cases, people may feel that a muscle group is being more heavily worked and feel that it is a exercise simply for that muscle group. Good example is, a leg press or a squat. You feel it like crazy in your quads. And again, this is just due to more sensory nerves in that area because of where the femoral nerve is located. And they believe that they're not training their glutes on a leg press or squat because they don't feel it in their glutes and you only feel it in your quads. Well, that's not true. The glutes are the prime mover in a leg press and a squat, which means they're responsible for performing the majority of the movement, which is hip extension. Your glutes are heavily involved in a squat or a leg press or any hip extension exercise, regardless of if you feel it or not. The glutes are the prime mover in a leg press and a squat, which means they're responsible for performing the majority of the movement, which is hip extension. Your glutes are heavily involved in a squat or a leg press or any hip extension exercise, regardless of if you feel it or not. And I've got bodybuilders, idiot coaches, unconsciously incompetent personal trainers who are designing exercises based on feel, when feel during an exercise is almost irrelevant. For instance, an exercise where you put a muscle in a stretched position or passive insufficiency, you're going to feel that a lot more. For instance, doing drag curls. I saw on Charles Glass' Instagram, he was instructing a female bodybuilder on drag curls. There's no reason to do a drag curl, and the only reason you feel it more is because you're putting your biceps in passive insufficiency, in a stretched position. Ideally, you don't want to work any muscle in the stretched position. Another example is a lunge. You may feel it in your glutes more in a lunge, and it's simply because you're putting your hamstrings in passive insufficiency during it. And also because your pelvic bone is grinding against your glute muscle because of the position ring. Doesn't mean it's more effective glute exercise. Feeling can be extremely deceiving. So as long as you are doing the movement properly and reaching failure, the prime movers and all the muscles involved in that movement are going to be effectively stimulated. You don't need to do all this bodybuilder moron nonsense. Changing angles, working muscles in a stretched position, working them in a more contracted position to get them to respond better simply because you feel them there more. No, this is nonsense. This is just people who don't understand biomechanics and physiology. So, in a nutshell, if you're doing your pulling movements and you're feeling that your biceps and forearms are giving out early, just don't do anything different. Don't add straps or wrist wraps. A lot of the times this is only a phenomenon with beginners who are very deconditioned. Over time, you will notice that it will kind of dissipate, but you will notice on pulling movements that your biceps become extremely fatigued. And just because you feel the biceps does not mean the lats, the rear delts, the rhomboids, and the trapezius are not being worked.